What the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or follow us on Twitter at RewatchPod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm all I need is just a little more time to be sure what I feel is it all in my mind, 'cause it seems so hard to believe that you're all I need.
Oh, man, I was waiting for the guitar to bust out.
That's where the drums come in, then it's just that's the next part.
Nice one. I love it.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for joining us, everyone. We are here to discuss 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline reads, Sex, Lies, and John Doe.
I know, there's not much you could do with that.
I know, right?
The second title.
I'm getting kinkier.
Yes, exactly.
The 2 episodes are Sex, Lies, and Videotape and Meet John Doe. So let's get straight into it. The first episode, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, written by Andrew Detman and Daniel Truly, directed by Philip Grisha, and this originally aired January 19th of 1997.
You guys haven't seen this morning's National Inquisitor, have you?
That supermarket rag? Why would we?
Or the Dirt Digger?
Of course not, Jimmy. What's going on?
Oh my God, Clark.
Lois
That's me.
and Superman.
Guys, let me just be the first to say that I don't believe it for a second, all right? It's obviously fake. The photograph's fake. It's unequivocally bogus. Although it's pretty good work. I mean, I've never seen anything quite as good. The matte lines all matched. The
Jimmy.
legs, sorry, on your team, 100%.
Lois Clark, in my office.
Chief, first of all, I want you to know.
Of course, I don't believe a word of it, Lois. I know you'd never do anything like that to Clark. I've never seen 2 people so in love. This is just pure tabloid trash. It's that simple.
Thanks, Chief.
Now, that said, this thing's already blown up pretty big. Now, the Daily Planet has yet to take an official position, but I can't sit on my hands much longer. The fellas upstairs are breathing down my neck to clean up this mess. So, what do you want me to do? What do we print?
When Lois and Clark get careless and allow a tabloid reporter named Samantha to get a picture of Lois holding Superman's arm, it prompts a follow-up investigation to see if there's more to uncover. Samantha's boss, Mr. Good, is extremely jealous of Superman, not just for beating him out as winner of the International Peace Prize, but also for various other popular awards over the past year, and it's his desire to drag Superman's reputation through the mud. Samantha goes undercover at the Daily Planet and eventually learns of a romantic getaway that Lois and Clark have planned. She follows them and eventually manages to snap a picture of Superman embracing Lois, having rushed there after he was mediating peace talks between 2 warring nations. The next morning, however, Samantha gets knocked over, exposing her film and ruining her pictures, necessitating a visit to a photo lab to use computers to recreate the image, which is then printed in newspapers and shown on TV, revealing that it seems Superman and Lois are having an affair. Superman tries to maintain his status as a symbol of truth, but those involved in the peace talks refuse to negotiate further, not trusting him unless he has an explanation for the photo. He decides to call a press conference the next day and try to clear up the situation. Meanwhile, Jimmy has been narrowing down the list of photo labs with the technology to fake a picture of this quality and comes across Hank's photo lab. Lois and Jimmy break in and find the evidence they need, but Lois gets grabbed by Good and used as bait to lure Superman away from the press conference. Superman rushes away from the conference to save Lois, who explains that there's a bomb set to go off at the peace talks at the same time. Superman rescues Lois and manages to stop the signal used to set off the bomb, returning to the press conference to explain that the photo was faked, proven with Jimmy's found evidence, apprehends Good and Samantha, and makes sure the peace talks get back on track again.
Lois Lane? Hi, Miss Lane. My name is Barry Dunning.
I know who you are.
Oh, then you're familiar with my show, In Your Face with Barry Dunning?
Yeah, riveting journalism, especially the show on cross-dressing cousins and the has-been child stars who love them.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. You know, Miss Lane, I'm going to give you a chance to tell your side of the story.
No comment.
What about the photograph, Miss Lane?
No comment.
And are you or are you not having an affair with Superman?
No comment.
What do you say to those who are calling you Superman Super Strumpet?
They're calling me Super Strumpet?
Care to respond?
No.
Oh, come on, Miss Lane. I'm only after the truth.
The truth means nothing to you. All you're interested in is sleaze. You're a disgrace to legitimate reporters like Clark and myself, and you are not going to get what you're digging for here, Vulture Boy. I'm not going to give you some soundbite that you can twist and turn. Whatever my relationship is with Superman is nobody's damn business but my own. So get out of my face.
All right, so plenty to investigate. Let's get into it.
Yep, and as with any good scandal, our reactions has dug deep and found tons of stuff taken out of the episode.
Here's that blue dress.
Yes, exactly. So let's see. Apparently, Superman, when he's talking to the councilman in the episode, he says, we're going to donate this, for charity. In the script, he was supposed to say, I hope that, councilman, you will just consider donating this on behalf of the citizens of Metropolis. So they made it more, assured that he is actually doing that in the episode.
Random.
There were posters. There were more. The posters that were in Good's room, the network room there, they were described more in the actual script about what should be on them. So there was a poster that I guess was supposed to say the all nude network, and then also the violence channel, which is kind of funny,
This guy's supposed to be low key, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's supposed to be low key. I just think he's supposed to be, like they said, he's like, into like sensationalism. Mm-hmm. So, of course, having an all nude network and the violence channel, trying to play onto what people, kind of want, sex and violence. So now when Samantha was on the ledge, and spying on Lois, she was supposed to be on the phone with Good at the same time. And she's like, yeah, I'm here. And yeah, they're registered as Mr. and Mrs., but he's nowhere to be seen. It's just been her for hours. She's been playing cards, watching TV, even rearranged the furniture. And I think, oh, wait, no, here, someone's coming. I got to go. And then she hangs up. So that's, probably cut for time or something. Didn't really need it.
Who rearranges the furniture in a hotel room?
Well, Lois. Lois. The discounted Superman merchandise sequence where they keep, marking down the prices and trying to give it away, that wasn't even in the script, so they added that a little bit later. A woman gets interviewed on TV, and, when they were doing all those interviews, she says, I got the feeling from the way the script was worded that she was supposed to be perhaps a maid of Hispanic descent, just because of the way they worded it. And she was like, I used to clean Miss Lane's house before she was married, and I saw Superman fly into her room window many times, and I... And then Lois comes in. She's like, no, I never saw that woman before, It's very comical, very comical. I wish they had kept that in. Lois and Perry, they come out of the elevator at one point, and Perry's like, oh, the board, they're all just a bunch of stuffed shirts looking to cover their backsides. Don't you worry, honey. No matter how bad this gets, there's no way I'm going to let them fire you. And then they cut to the scene on the TV where the two sisters are saying Superman was their lover.
Right.
A little extra Perry there. Lois complains about being the bad guy. She's like, I just want to find the bad guy who took the photo. And Clark says, well, even if we do find him, this isn't going to blow over because the truth is. And she's like, I know what the truth is. You keep reminding me. Look, let's not fight. Let's just, the world needs its hero back before it falls apart at the seams. And he rushes off to, try to help. I think we got the point in there that she's just really upset, that she knows what the truth is. They don't need to show them fighting. Lois and Clark about it.
And they get that moral dilemma out there pretty clearly. We don't need to have it all the way home.
Exactly. And then finally, at the last thing was Jimmy was supposed to pick the lock at Hank's photo lab, and Lois asks, where'd you learn how to do that? And he says, learned it from you. And she says, I'm a bad influence.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
There it is. The room's all fixed up. Good as new.
Nice of Superman to put it back together. Did anyone see you?
No, absolutely not. I checked very carefully. So what did you think of Superman's speech?
It was good. Did he have to make not having an illicit affair sound so noble? Are you all right with it?
Well, I told the truth. I mean, I answered the questions they asked me truthfully.
So you're not completely comfortable?
No, not completely. There was a larger truth to protect here. And in this instance, it was the right thing to do. Just do me one favor, okay? Let's you and I be a little bit more careful from now on, okay?
It is still safe to kiss my husband, though, right?
Yes. Oh, whoa. Your feet are freezing.
Warm him up.
Okay.
You missed.
No, I didn't.
All right, so let's get into the main story.
Yep.
And the lead, careless, cute couple creates chaos. So, yeah, you know, this is an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
Superman and Lois hitting the front pages over a cheating sex scandal of some kind.
Exactly. You know, and it makes sense because they, you know, like I've thought about that before too. Like in the past episodes, they'd walk off together, or she'd be talking to Superman privately away from the other reporters. You know, you knew that there was like some kind of something going on there. You know, so you'd wonder, how come she gets all these exclusives? Why is he just going off and talking with her? Why doesn't he come over here and talk to me?
Yeah.
So it's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's really good how they sort of tie it into, like, bigger issues, in a way. He's been given this International Peace Prize, and of course, like, you know, he's got some prize money that goes with that, so he's just going to donate that.
Right.
What does Superman need with money? And then you got this, like, newspaper mogul, you know, he's sort of like, I guess he's in like the communications industry, really. He's got news networks and newspapers and stuff, and
Right.
he's kind of annoyed that Superman keeps winning all these peace prizes. He wants it for himself, you know, so you put like this perfect storm of scenario together, and just because it's a sex scandal doesn't mean that it can't impact more, because Superman is so much more, right?
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, it's a cool setup, and I think it's going to come out like pretty well as well.
Now, this guy, this Randy Good, do you know who that is?
No, I've got no idea who this guy is.
He was big back in the day as he had a recurring role on a soap opera, and I forget what soap opera it was, but he was pretty popular on there. You know, I think he played a spy or some kind of like character that was mysterious and, you know, sexy and everything, would show up from time to time. And so he was on there as that. But see, that's not where I know him from. I know him because back in the late 80s, I think it was, he had a hit song, which you heard me sing at the beginning. It was a song called All I Need. His name is Jack Wagner. Okay. And he had this song called All I Need, which was it's so good. It's such a good 80s, you know, late 80s, early 90s love ballad, you know, with guitars and drums and like a smoke machine. You could just see it, you know, you could just see it all. It was such a good song. I remember singing it, you know, when I was in high school, and I was like, oh, I love this song. It's so good. Putting it on, you know, trying to romance the ladies.
So I'm guessing like a poor man's David Hasselhoff or something.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, he was pretty well known back in the day. He was like the guy, you know, the attractive, you know, sexy actor to cast in things. And I think he's done things since then. Let's see. Oh, it's the Bold and the Beautiful. Okay. I guess is the one he was on. But he was also on Melrose Place. He did, I guess, some guest spots on Santa Barbara. So he's still working, it looks like. You know, he has credits up through 2017, so he's still doing stuff here and there.
You know, good for him.
Yeah.
All right, so getting into the nuts and bolts of it all, Superman is brokering a peace treaty between these two warring nations, fake countries, Ladisland and Pedansk. I think they're sort of going for like a Russian-y kind of feel there.
Yeah, exactly.
One of these guys I do know, Tommy Amendola. He was, for many years in Stargate. He played Master Braytak.
Right, okay. Yeah, I think I've seen him before, too. Yeah, he seemed familiar.
He gets around.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing, is that Superman's sort of considered this impartial party to help them with their negotiations in this whole sex scandal has put all that in jeopardy. So while all this is going on, Good has his reporters out there trying to get something, right? Because they're kind of known for just being, fluff and trash. And his reporter Samantha catches this innocent little touch between Lois and Superman and immediately goes with, there's something more going on here. But the important thing is... is that she catches them at this mountain getaway, gets a photo, but it's destroyed.
It's destroyed, yes.
And they kind of leave it ambiguous to, did she manage to save the film, or is there something else at play here?
Yeah, I think that, definitely did not save the film. And so they had to recreate it.
Yeah. I mean, even that sort of played out pretty well,
Oh, yeah,
as it went on. Like, you don't know, like... One minute, she's dropped her camera, and then she's like, oh, this photo lab, she's a reporter, she probably knows a good photo guy. So when the pictures splashed all over the newspapers, you're like, oh, okay, she managed to save it. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, something's going to come up about, maybe it's real, but they really had to touch it up to save it, or, as it's going to turn out to be, they just recreated it from scratch, and it is a fake.
Exactly. Yep.
Even though it really happened.
Exactly. So it's kind of like, on one level, you can sort of feel bad for her because, she's just doing her job and she actually did, catch the truth, but then because, the accident, she had to, fake a copy of the truth, I guess. It's just, it's like, well, she was sort of right, like what if that hadn't happened, how would you get out of this?
But of course you can't feel too bad for her at the same time, because, she goes back to her boss, Randy Good, and he immediately says, like, we're going to strike while the iron's hot here. Like, I don't care what the story is, we'll make up stuff. And, we'll roll with Superman's infidelity and make him look even worse, because he's lost his credibility now. We've destroyed it.
Exactly. Now, speaking of Samantha, do you know who Samantha is?
No. Again, no, don't recognize
This is
her.
another one. And this is another one from the, the 80s. Now, I think she was more in the 90s, if I recall. But she was a VJ on MTV back in the early days.
All right.
Yeah, she was called Downtown Julie Brown was her name on MTV. And as soon as she showed up, I recognized her because, when I was watching MTV, when it came out, I was young. I was in junior high, I think. And then I watched it all throughout high school. And of course, when she came on, she was so different from the other VJs because she had that accent, So she was immediately like, she stood out amongst all the other VJs they had who were just typical, American, not all blonde, but, like typical American, young, hot people. So it was different because she had that accent. And just as a side note, there's another MTV VJ credited for this episode, Nina Blackwood. She's credited as playing someone named Jean Sally in this episode, but I couldn't find her. Like I looked through and I could not figure out who she was. I don't know if she was maybe the twins, but it was just so quick I couldn't tell if it was her or not. So apparently she's in there somewhere.
Yeah, there is a few side bits where they talk to people on TV. I mean, that room of reporters at Good's office is like full of people there. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I looked through there and I was like, it doesn't really look like her. But yeah, the closest I can imagine would be the twins.
Interesting. Getting into it, what do you think of this moral dilemma that they throw out there? Superman is, as we know, is beyond reproach, so he can't really go out there and deny that anything's going on. Yet at the same time, it's really not true. The photo, as far as they're aware, is real.
Right.
But the quote-unquote cheating headlines aren't really accurate. But, there's nothing they can say. So what do you think of all this, that sort of, if it hadn't turned out to be a fake picture, how do you think they would have dealt with it?
Well, this is the best way to get at Superman, because you can't, if you're going to try to beat him physically, you're going to lose. If you're going to try to take over the world, you're going to lose. But if you can get him on this other level where it's a moral dilemma, you could beat him that way. So it's a good way for this guy, for Good, to sort of establish himself as almost like if he hadn't been, caught at the end, it's almost like he's a poor man's Lex Luthor, like he's playing with Superman in a way that all the petty criminals don't. They always try to, all the villains of the week always try to get him with strength or their special power, but this guy's going for the moral thing, and that's where you can get Superman. So I thought it was neat. I like it.
Yeah, but he really goes like above and beyond. Really.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like it goes from like Superman scandal to let's just say anything we want to
exactly.
Let's have these peace talks fold and really have war break out. Yeah, that'll really destroy Superman. And you're like, wow, man, like for a guy who wants an International Peace Prize, you've gone over the edge, dude.
Yep, definitely.
So, of course, they really look into it. Jimmy tracks down the photo lab responsible for making the fake, so that all comes about. But, while all this is going on, Clark decides he has no choice. He's just got to reveal his identity, His wife is being besmirched everywhere, so he's got no choice. He's got to pretty much end his normal life, Yeah. I love the talk he has with Martha and Jonathan about it. Like, you're giving up your regular life by telling people who you are.
You could see his point about what he wants to do and how it should. You'd think it would solve everything, but Lois makes a very good point. That why would they then be okay? Because you're just saying, oh, I've been lying to you for all these years, So by telling them who you are, it gets rid of one scandal, but then it still does not cause everyone to automatically trust you because you've been lying to them, that you are Clark Kent when you are also Superman. So I thought that was a neat little twist on it.
And not to mention that, even though Lois is already all over the news headlines, what's going to happen when people realize that she's married to Superman?
Exactly.
It's going to be even worse for her.
Going to try to kidnap her, and everything.
So, it's not the best plan, but really it's all he has to go with. So I think it's cool that, Lois is the one that sort of uncovers it, with Jimmy's help, of course, but
right.
She saves him, in a way, from having to do something that he really doesn't want to do. I really like that. And then Good just, as much as he's gone over the edge, now he's really gone over the edge, because he is now sort of in on these peace talks, and he's just going to blow the place up to really, drive it home, because it's his own offices. So that why would he blow up his own office? But, they get around the whole trigger mechanism. We've seen this kind of stuff before. Like, hey, Superman, you trigger this, and are you that quick that you can save him, blah, blah. Of course, he'll figure it out. And the two of them are arrested. Superman can deny the affair, and the peace talks resume, and I think it all ends, nice and well. Lois and Clark finally have their romantic getaway.
Yes.
Speaking of which, this odd little ending where she asks to have her feet warmed, and he uses his heat vision, and she says, "Oh, you missed." And he says, "No, I didn't." So, did he give her a little zap down there?
You mean her feet?
A little bit
knees,
higher.
Then you mean, right?
Still a bit higher.
I think so.
It was weird.
He can control the intensity, so I'm sure you just dial it down a little bit and gave a little, get up and go there.
Wow. It was just so out of nowhere that I was like, whoa, they went there. Wow, they really went there.
I like it though. They're good together. They really seem like in both these episodes, they seem very comfortable, much more comfortable. So, yeah.
That's really good. And a bit further in the bylines. So this guy Good, right?
Yes.
He just straight up murders people.
Yes.
Why do these reporters work for him?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he has dirt on them or something, we don't know. But I don't maybe they didn't see him push the guy in the elevator, did they?
Well, I think they have to assume that he killed him, right? He threw him down the elevator shaft at his own building.
Yeah, but they didn't see it though, did they?
Yeah, I guess you make a good point.
If they left the room, and then he calls him over and he does it, it's like, oh well, wow, he had an accident. That's unfortunate. Maybe they could get suspicious if they're good reporters, that's very interesting. But they're not working at Daily Planet. They are working for a tabloid company, so they might not be the most quick of the reporters out there.
It's later on when Samantha brings him the tape of, just the innocent little flirting.
Yes.
And he goes, "That's it? Come over here. I need to show you something by my elevator."
Exactly. Yes.
That's a good line. And speaking of good lines, I thought it was hilarious when the story blows up and he goes, "It's everywhere. It's even on the internet."
I know. It's like, that's totally opposite of today. They'd be like, "It's everywhere. It's even on TV."
I know.
Got it all over the internet.
You'd be like, "Wow, the newspaper got this story out really quickly."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's what it would be. Yeah.
Just really made me laugh.
Mm.
Did you also notice that Lois's fish tank is fixed?
I did not see it. See, I don't know. All these people, you guys look for these things. I never noticed the fish tank before. It was broken, and now I see. Now it's fixed, and I'm like, whatever. I didn't even notice it.
I just noticed it because we were talking about that it was broken.
Right.
And then in this episode, there it was in the background. I was like, oh, okay. Superman just welded that back together with his heat vision, maybe.
Well, yeah. We got to make a website, lois'sfishtank.com, and document all the appearances of Lois's Fish Tank.
I'm buying that domain now.
There you go.
But all in all, good episode. Really, really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I liked it. And I even like last week as we were talking about it and we were deciding, well, what's it about? What do you think it's about? And after we finished and I thought about what I had said, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember this episode now, because I had the inkling of what I thought it was about Superman being caught or something like that in a compromising position. I'm like, oh, that's right. I remember after the fact that I really remembered, oh yeah, it has that Jack Wagner in it. So yeah,
Nice.
I liked it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this week's quote photo.
All right.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet, or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
Okay, so we actually had a few votes actually across both our Facebook pages. So we have a clear winner here. So let's get into it. Cue the music.
Kermit the Frog and Alan Rickman discuss a bogus affair.
How are you holding up?
Considering I'm one notch below Cruella de Vil on the popularity scale, great. Everywhere I go, it's cold stares and even colder soldiers. Everywhere I go, it's cold stares and even colder shoulders. I think people blame me for also bringing down their hero.
And that's one. Go it.
If it makes you feel any better, they're not too crazy about their hero either. The ladies in the steno pool are using a picture of me as a dartboard.
I'm sorry. I'm sure it's really tough on...
Kermit notices gifts on Alan's desk.
You, too. What is all this?
Condolence gifts for me.
Homemade fudge?
A couple of women downstairs whipped it up.
Oh, I see. I eat crow, you get fudge. Yay!
And
scene.
Love
That's
it.
a cute one. I like it.
Well, let's get into the second episode discussion. And yes, we know we're in the middle of a two-parter again. Sorry, folks. What can you do? If they just named it Part 1 and 2, then we would know.
Yes.
The second episode discussion today is titled Meet John Doe, written by Tim Minear, directed by Jim Pohl, and this originally aired on March 2nd of 1997.
Soon I'll have everything I want. World conquest, and as a bonus, the destruction of Superman. Ah, right on time.
Citizen Tempest, I am Andrus, Utopian peacekeeper.
No, really?
I have a warrant for your extradition. I will recite from the list of charges. Crimes against humanity, vicious deeds.
Blatant disregard for human life, blah, blah, blah. Can we go?
I leave in your place this replicant. Synthetic Tempest, who shall keep the people of this primitive time from asking questions better left unanswered.
Oh, God. It's starting to come back to me. They all talk like you in the future, don't they? Well, let's get this over. Well, look, what's that?
What?
On the eve of a presidential election, Clark begins suffering bad dreams, showing himself trying to reach Lois but unable to reach her as she is grabbed and pulled away by a shadowy figure into a mysterious portal. Soon he realizes who the shadowy figure is as a mysteriously absent rival presidential candidate suddenly starts rising in the polls against the incumbent President Garner. As he makes his first appearance in public, it's a man that Lois and Clark recognize as their time-traveling enemy, Tempest. Tempest apparently escaped prison by overpowering a futuristic peacekeeper named Andros who came back in time to extradite him back to the future to pay for his crimes. Leaving behind a holographic fake Tempest, he begins his bid for the presidency going by the name John Doe. When Andros tries to return again, Tempest outsmarts him and engages him to be his running mate, holding him captive. Lois and Clark confront Doe and trade verbal jabs, confirming that he is indeed Tempest. Despite all of that, Lois still can't help saying that John Doe seems like a darn nice guy, a sentiment echoed by Perry, Jimmy, and countless others around the nation. It turns out that Tempest has been using a futuristic device to plant suggestions in their subconscious, which is how he manages to threaten Lois by suggesting she drive her car off a cliff, showing Superman that he is not to be trifled with. Tempest easily wins the election and allows Andros to escape in order to bring Superman to him. Once there, the fake holographic Tempest is taken prisoner by Superman and they enter Andros' time window. The fake Tempest disappears and the real Tempest enters the room, touching the window, causing it to rupture and sending Superman off into the universe, spread out across time and space, while Andros disappears from the changed timeline and Lois falls to the floor, utterly despondent.
My God, Clark. It is him. He practically came right out and admitted it.
Not practically, Lois. That's exactly what he did. We gotta figure out how he's doing this, how he's swaying public opinion.
He's not swaying public opinion. He is getting into people's heads. I know two things for sure. Tempest is evil and has to be stopped, and John Doe is a darn nice guy.
Wait. You still believe that?
No. No, but it's in my head. He put it in my head just like he put it into everybody else's head. Only the difference is I know who Tempest is and what he's capable of.
Yeah, and he knows who I am.
He must have known you wouldn't be effective, and that's why he allowed us to speak to him. It was a warning.
No, it was a challenge.
What are we gonna do?
Stop it.
Alright, surprisingly, only a tiny little bit of info here in our investigation.
Right. Well, there might be more, maybe later, because since it is a to be continued, there might be stuff later. So we'll see. But for this one, what we got is Lois. She's talking about how the future is overrated. So she said that in the episode, but in the script, she was also supposed to add, I've only ever met one guy from there, and he turned out to be a homicidal sociopath, for instance. So just a little extra tag and line there. And then finally, when Tempest and Superman are facing off against each other, and Tempest says, "No, don't worry, he won't harm me." Superman says, "Don't bet on it." Nice little, yeah.
Take that, Tempest.
Exactly.
Nice.
Though the Doe administration doesn't officially take power for a few months, I wanted to let the people know that we're going to make the transition as painless as possible. I'm already working with President Garner on that.
Oh, God. Starting already.
My greatest hope is that the former supporters of President Garner will join with me in making this country great again.
Again?
Like back in the days of slavery.
In particular, Superman. Superman, if you're listening, I want you to know that I hope we can find a place for you in the Doe administration. Once all citizens are working through the proper channels, especially well-meaning but lawless vigilantes such as yourself, well, the world will be a safer and more ordered place. I hope you can understand that. And if you can't, well, we'll just have to figure out something else. That's all for today. Thank you.
Clark, he said your name.
I know.
I know this isn't our usual approach, but I say you go over there and kick his skinny butt.
I would love to. You know Superman can't just go beat up the president-elect.
Why not?
Lois.
He's dangerous.
I know. He's also the most popular man in the country right now. Elected by a landslide. We have to be very, very smart about this.
Tempest. President of the United States. What a nightmare.
Alright, so getting into the main story, and the lead here, President pro tempus.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
Nice play on words. Well
yeah,
done.
President pro tempore. I thought, well, that works. Why not? And it sounds like it could have been an episode title, actually.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, so Clark's been having nightmares about a shadowy figure sort of taking Lois, grabbing her and pulling her into some sort of portal. And then we get to it. Lane Davies is returning as Tempest.
It was a good introduction here to his character.
Yeah, and I really had to think, where did we see him last, right? And they came back to the present and he was arrested. So we're going with some continuity here. He's in a psychiatric prison.
He was running for mayor, wasn't he, or something? Yeah, he was mayor of the other alternate universe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so here he is. He's in a psychiatric prison. And you think he's talking to a psychiatrist?
Yeah.
It's good, use of camera angles there.
It was, yeah. I love that.
But yeah, he's just spilling his guts to this other inmate, and he's like, "Why are you telling me?" And it's pretty much because who's gonna believe you?
Exactly. You're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
But the thing is that he knows that somebody's coming to collect him.
Yeah.
That he's going to be taken back to Utopia for trial and sentencing.
Yeah, I don't know how he knows, unless during the last time he somehow went to the future and saw what was going to happen. I don't know.
Or they warned him ahead of time for some reason.
Right.
I'm just here to tell you that you're going to be arrested in a couple of days. Bye.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And then they show up. So, yeah, I don't know how he knew, but he knew. And we get this utopian peacekeeper, Andrus. He takes Tempest into custody, leaves a replicant behind.
Right.
So the people of the present day don't ask any questions. And he takes him through the portal, but then at that moment, Tempest gets the upper hand and knocks him out. And this is kind of our big setup, because Tempest is going to come back and run for President of the United States under the name John Doe, and running against him for re-election, returning Fred Willard as President. Garner.
Love him. He's so good.
So good to have him back too.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a weird introduction because he just puts up this poster. His face isn't even on it. It just says elect John Doe. So you're like, what's he doing here? And it turns out that while he was in the future, he stole a bit of what, there is illegal technology called a subliminator.
Yeah.
And he's going to use that in conjunction with the telephone system to make people vote John Doe. So what do you think of Tempest's evil plan in this one?
Well, I mean, the subliminator is a little cheesy, but I go with it. I'm fine with it because it works. I like the idea. It's mind control. They could have maybe come up with something less cheesy than the subliminator, but it's good. It's fine. I like it. I think it's a good idea. I like that he's trying to, I know he's doing it illegally by mind control, but he's, not trying to take down Superman directly again, just like the last episode. Instead of trying to take Superman down directly that's going to be difficult, very difficult, if not impossible. So doing it indirectly is the way to go. And I like it.
It's an interesting ploy that it's easier for him to attack everybody else in the world simultaneously than it is for him to attack Superman directly.
Exactly.
So this is the whole thing. He's telling them to vote John Doe, and we get a couple of demonstrations on how the subliminator works, right?
Yeah.
It starts with the security guard at the phone company who he tells to just go jump out of a window at 12 o'clock.
Yes.
And the guy is saved by Superman, but he's just like, I don't know why I did it. It just seemed like the thing to do.
Yeah, it was a good idea at the time.
Yeah, so it's that kind of it demonstrates the sense of confusion that it causes in people. They don't know why they think it. They just think it. And then the next thing is to pass it on to everybody that John Doe is a darn nice guy.
I love that.
I do love the line because everybody keeps saying it.
Yep.
And and that's kind of what ticks it over in Clark's head that something's going on here, because everybody refers to John Doe the same way. He's a darn nice guy. So yeah, it's cool how that unfolded and how the mystery was getting pieced together by Lois and Clark. Especially the fact that Lois is going to be conflicted by what she thinks, because she knows who Tempest is.
Yeah, but she still says he's a darn nice guy. That's what does it, yeah.
I really like that line. She goes, if there's two things I really know, is that Tempest is an evil man and that John Doe is a darn nice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But Andrus comes back, right? He comes back to get Tempest, and I don't know. What'd you think of this way that they sort of subdue Andrus?
You mean how he just sort of grabs the thing and then
and then he just gets like a photo and says, "You're my running mate." So now you're in as much trouble as I am, Andrus. Haha.
Yeah, and see, the whole thing I think is that Andrus, the way they put it across is that like everyone is so, or the way I took it, Andros is so like loving of his world, like it's so peaceful, there's no crime and this and that, so that he really doesn't understand Tempest's evil side. Like when Tempest attacks him, Andros doesn't know what to do because it's just not something he's familiar with. It's so foreign to him because his culture is so different. And like Tempest said, oh, they all talk like you, don't they? I just remember, So it's like the whole world, I guess if it's free of, like crime and hate and all that, then it's like, well, maybe they're just so peaceful. They don't know how to react when someone acts like that because no one acts like that. Tempest is the aberration. So I can go with it. Because like I said, he just is not expecting it. He's like, well, it's time to go back, Tempest, or to face your crimes. And he's just expecting him to go along with him naturally. It's almost like you've read The Time Machine.
Yeah.
With the Eloi, and the Morlocks, and like the Eloi are just so peaceful, loving creatures. They don't know what's going on. They just sort of like graze all day, and that's all they do. And they don't get these Morlocks who would attack them. Like why? That's the way I was thinking of it anyway. Just they're kind of not mindless, but similar. Like that. They just. Everything's all happy and peaceful. So,
and I can see why you would reference The Time Machine too, because Wells.
Exactly.
But the complete opposite of that. Actually, I was actually thinking Demolition Man while you were saying that. If you ever saw that, the Stallone movie, right?
Right.
They thaw out the old cop because they now live in a utopian future and they don't know how to fight this bad guy.
Right.
So yeah, not quite Wells, but still a pretty good movie.
That's right. For a second, I thought Judge Dredd, but no, now I know what you're talking about. I was like, that's right, not Judge Dredd. Yeah, the other one. Okay.
So Andrus is out of the way. Clark now sees the shadowy figure from his reoccurring dream, and it's Tempest, of course.
Right, of course.
And then we get this whole thing where Tempest turns everybody against Superman.
Oh yeah, that was a good little scene.
And he's just bombarded with stuff like having a flight license for the FAA. The IRS is asking him about his tax returns.
Yep, exactly.
The Department of Immigration and Naturalization want to see his green slip.
Yep.
I thought it was a fun little scene, actually, really.
Yeah, I like that.
The fact that they let the bank robbers go because he didn't read Miranda rights.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I've never done it before. It's your guys' job.
Yeah, it's just a good way of sort of, taking that Superman idea and throwing some reality at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though the bank robbers are clearly leaving the scene of a crime with guns and ski masks on. It's a lot of fun. But we start to see that Tempest isn't really getting to everybody because there's a homeless guy and he witnessed Tempest arriving and he saw Andrus arrive as well. So that this thing's not working with everybody, probably because it's working through the phone system. So if you don't use a phone, then it's not going to get to you.
Right.
Right? So he's going around killing homeless dudes and stuff. It's pretty evil.
Yeah, it is. It's like whoever works for him too. He's like, now drive, they saw him just do this. This is the guy who's running for president. And they're like, okay. But again, the subliminator at work.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes sense why they can talk to the inmate, the one that was next to Tempest in the mental hospital.
Right.
Because who's he going to call?
Exactly.
The fact that they get there and there's this replicant there, I mean, like, that replicant's not doing a very good job, really. He kind of just sits there and agrees with people, right?
Exactly, yeah.
He's just like, yeah, the doctor's been talking to me and I feel much better. And he's like, wow, it's a dramatic turnaround for a mental patient.
Yeah, that's how Clark knows it isn't real Tempest, because he could see it, like he says, in his eyes. He doesn't have the evil.
So the next step is, of course, to attack Lois, right?
Right. Yep.
So she's going to go and drive her car off a cliff. And this kind of tips Clark over the edge. This is where he really goes and gets up in Tempest's face.
Yeah.
And he's telling Lois about his dreams. And she's reassuring him that everything will be fine. They sleep together, right, in the middle of all this because, I guess Lois and Clark they have to bone, like, every episode now. Because they're a married couple.
Like exactly.
But of course, like, Tempest lets Andrus escape because he knows what he's going to do. He's going to go and he's going to find Clark and beg them and come back to Utopia with me and we'll sort all this out, right? And it's cool how it all tied back together because, like, Andrus was telling him about, like, we've disabled your time device, I've only got mine. If you touch mine, then the whole window will become unstable and stuff like that. So when all that comes together, Superman is lured into the portal using the replicant. All Tempest has to then do is touch it, and then the whole thing disintegrates.
Exactly.
Into an eternity, just scattered into eternity, as Andrew says. And then he himself ceases to exist. It's pretty full. It's a full-on ending.
Yeah, because that utopian future that was created by Superman will never exist now if, he's disappeared into eternity at this point. So, yep. But did it bother you at all? Because it didn't bother me that when Superman gets there, he takes Tempest, the replicant, and just takes him into the window and doesn't realize that it's the replicant.
I don't know. It all happens very quickly.
It does. So I just think that he was just filled with, a lot of anger, and so he just wasn't really looking the way he was when they went to the jail cell and could see, when they were calm, that it wasn't really Tempest.
Well, and the response he gets from him, like he says, like, do you have any remorse or anything like that? And all the replicant says back is, like, what would you have me say?
Yeah.
It's both something the replicant would say and something snarky that Tempest would say, so.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me.
I will say I did in the summary I did call it a hologram because of the way it disappeared when he went into the time window because he just sort of vaporized. So I maybe start thinking hologram, but yeah, I should have said replicant in the summary, but it's whatever. You know what I meant. Now this will come up in the back issues, but what about Andrus scattering and disappearing? Because Tempest doesn't scatter and disappear.
Yeah, no, I thought of that too. I don't know.
I have a theory.
Well, maybe they'll explain it in the next episode, but go for it.
They might. My theory is that maybe it's because Andros is total peacekeeping, happy, joy, and all that.
Yeah, he's a good person from a good time.
Yeah. Whereas Tempest is like the opposite of all that. So even if Utopia doesn't exist, it's possible Tempest still would have existed no matter what, because just, normal life, he's a bad guy. So that's my theory anyway.
That makes sense. I can roll with it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next episode and seeing how this all comes together. Superman's gone, Tempest is pretty much president, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is crazy.
I know.
This is going to be a good wrap up. I know it.
Speaking of crazy, as we go into the bylines, let's start with this one. Speaking of crazy, I'm sitting there watching this episode. I'm watching it. Tempest gets on TV to do a press conference. And I'm watching this. He's like, and I hope that the supporters of President Garner will join with me to help make this country great again. What? What did you just say? I went back and I watched it again. And Clark's like, what do you mean great again?
Yeah, what do you mean again? Yeah.
Yeah. And Lois is like, in the time of slavery. And I'm like, what? What the hell? No, come on. Tell me that Trump did not see this episode and think, I think that would make a great catchphrase. I'm going to use it. This will be huge.
That'll be huge. Nobody will know. Pat did my whole campaign on this episode of Lois and Clark when Tempest takes over the world. It's going to be huge.
He's a celebrity. He could have been watching this show, It's... oh my God. I was just like, no way.
Just imagine if, like, Donald Trump did a cameo for this episode or something.
Oh, my God. We could trace it all back. It's Lois and Clark's fault that Trump is here.
It's crazy.
Oh,
you just point that. You
God.
just feel like pointing that out. You're just like, the last time somebody used this slogan, they brainwashed the entire country.
Exactly.
Literally.
Exactly. Oh, God. It was so... that made me sit right up and say, WTF.
Oh, it's great. So funny.
Yes.
So funny. Well, were you at all surprised that Jimmy's Rhodes Scholar girlfriend is gone?
Oh, my God. No. Of course not.
He's got his eye on the president's daughter.
Exactly. Go figure. Oh, Jimmy.
Every time.
Yep.
The other one that I thought was hilarious was that he's talking about, like, patches of the country that aren't pro John Doe. And his campaign manager says, oh, those are Amish communities that don't have telephones. Right. So he sends out a message on the Subliminator where he's just like, the Amish are not your friends.
Exactly.
Their crafts are poorly made.
Yes. Their craftsmanship is shoddy. That was good.
It's so good to have Lane Davies back. Those Tempest lines are just so funny.
I know.
But I don't think any quite as funny as Make This Country Great Again.
Exactly. That was the best right there.
Have you nothing to say? No remorse?
What would you have me say?
It's just as well, Superman. What? No! That was the replicant!
Superman!
Lois, get out! Get out now!
No, let her through. She should see this. Yes, sir. Let her out.
No! If he touches the window, Superman is doomed! Lois!
Well, time to get on with the country's work.
Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?
Gone.
What do you mean, gone?
He traveled into time without the window. He's in eternity now.
You have to help me get him back.
I feel strange. It's not unpleasant. Everything's changing. I no longer exist.
All right, well, let's get into some back issues, eh?
All right. So in general, people really liked Sex, Lies, and Videotape. You know, they thought Good was a good villain. There you go. No pun intended. He wasn't like a super powered baddie of the week. You know, they're hoping that they'll see more of him. You know, because he's kind of Lex Luthor like in that way.
Can't imagine we will. Nah.
Then there was people who didn't like Good because they said his grudge was unbelievable. You know, like that's not a very reasonable reason to hate someone. So they didn't like that. And his reasons for killing the worker was dumb. And then they had this whole thing about how Superman should have thrown the mirror up first, you know, to block the signal and then explained what he was doing because he wasted time explaining, you know, what he was going to do,
Right.
which gave the signal enough time to get to the bomb. Like logically, he should have just thrown it and then explained, you know.
Yeah, like, hey, Superman, what'd you just do? Oh, I interrupted the signal because, you know, light travels faster than sound, whatever.
Exactly.
Don't explain it first. Got it.
Right. Then they said, but overall, you know, Jimmy was given a lot to do, and Lois and Clark felt very natural. They were, you know, very good in the acting in this episode. It was very well done. Zoomway was there on these old forums saying how Superman as an icon of truth, justice, and fairness was really well done in this episode. You know, it really shows what he stands for. You know, and that if most of us had the powers of Superman, we still wouldn't be Superman because it involves a lot of personal sacrifice, as we saw in this episode. It was a very grown-up episode, and the romance and the steam between the two of them were real, very adult. They felt like newlyweds to her, compared to the episode Ghosts, where, yeah, they were newlyweds, but it felt forced then, she said. It didn't feel as real as it does in this episode. And then it devolves back and forth. That discussion devolves into a back and forth between her and another poster about nitpickers, you know, and why it's good to keep them around. And it wasn't really an argument. There's just some ribbing back and forth, you know, and that's sort of going to go into the next episode as well. But before we get to that, someone was asking, well, why didn't he just fly over to Lois so he didn't set off the pressure sensitive bomb? But I thought that when he arrived there, that when he stepped down, that was setting off the pressure sensitive. So if he moved, that's what would have done it. That's maybe what I thought.
But they do dedicate a good 2-3 minutes of time to playing a 7-word charades game.
Yes,
there could have been a better way to get through this.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, speaking of the nitpickers, you know, for the John Doe episode, there was a lot of people saying, what is everybody complaining about? You know, Doe was, you know, great. It's Tempest. He's back again. Awesome villain. The writing was equal to some of the best episodes of Lois and Clark.
Yeah, right
and
on.
The nitpickers show up, you know, and they're like, yeah, but we're not just fanboys who take anything that the, you know, producers hand us. We want the show to make sense, you know. If one person disappears from the future because it doesn't exist, then both people should be disappearing. Not all of us are fans of Lois and Clark. We're, you know, FOLCs. You know, the show was the best in season 1, and the green glow of home was, you know, hasn't been matched since then. Even though the pilot was amazing, you know, it's just gone downhill from there. And I'm like, wow, man. And they're like, they just went off. They're like, how did Doe get on the ballot so quick? That's not just possible. You know, in the previous season, 1996, Garner says it's an election year. So why would he say that if now in 1997, that's the election year? And why doesn't Lois just shout to the world that Tempest is using a fake Tempest to fool you? Because Superman would hear her. He always hears her. And why doesn't he use his heat vision to stop Tempest before you can touch the window so he doesn't get shattered into eternity? And it just goes on. And on. It's like, oh, you gotta
shut up.
If you want to enjoy the show, you can't have all of, I mean, I understand what they're saying. They want it to make sense. And yeah, but like, you know, like I said, Tempest didn't disappear. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's because of this, you know, it's because he's a bad guy and he would exist no matter what.
I think you and I have done our fair share of nitpicking as the seasons have gone along here. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't happen, then we don't have a show. So just let it slide. Yeah, you can point it out, but don't yammer on about, you know, Tempest should have disappeared too, and Lois should have just yelled for Superman, and keep it going, rolling all the way down the hill.
Now, Azumwe shows up again, and she mentions how Terry did such a great job at the end, because when she shouts Clark at the very end of the episode, you know, she said she did a great job of shouting Clark in a way that showed, you know, she was full of this sadness and despair. And she knew there wasn't going to be a response, you know, from Clark, that Clark was just gone. You know, this was really good acting. She said Dean was really intense in this episode. You could see that he's caught between love and fear and hate. And she liked the fact when Terry was saying the one line, you know, she focused on the word our, because Lois says something like, you know, I know this isn't our usual plan. And she said, it just shows that it's not just Superman, Lois and Clark. It's Clark plus Lois equals Superman, which is, I thought, a neat way to look at it, you know?
Yeah, no, it is cool. And I agree that delivery of her cry for Clark was a really interesting choice, you know? It wasn't cliched like, you know, Clark.
Exactly.
It was, you know, it had the pain of loss behind it, you know?
It did.
It really delivered well.
Also, they said Tempest in this episode was a lot darker. And he was more real, because the wisecracking guy was fun, but he didn't feel real to a couple people.
Well, he straight up kills that homeless dude.
Exactly. You know, seeing him this way just made it more realistic for them. They liked it. They said with Lane Davies, you know, they have a great villain again. And along with a possibly recurring Mixie-Spitalik, maybe they'll get higher ratings, you know?
Possibly reoccurring? I got nothing from that episode that said he'd be possibly reoccurring.
I didn't either, but they said hopefully. I guess they just want to see him. So they're thinking, you know, since maybe that episode got higher ratings than the other episodes, so they're thinking, oh, that's a good sign that they would bring him back to get those ratings. But they said, truthfully, even with those things, they really need to move to 8 o'clock later because it was really early. They're showing Lois and Clark now, or they need to move to another night if they want to get better ratings because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then finally, someone summed it all up with they said, you know what? Meet John Doe was a darn nice episode.
Oh no!
I was like, that's a good way.
It's
Good
been
way to end
brainwashed.
the forums there. Exactly. Exactly. Now, we have a little bit in the personal ads, and I usually incorporate this stuff into the discussion, but there was a little bit more here.
Okay.
So this comes from iReactions, and it's funny, like, as I was reading the old forums and reading what Zoomway wrote, I gotta say this. I think that if Zoomway were still around, she passed away a while ago. If she were around, I think her and iReactions would have really good discussions back and forth, because just seeing her, how she talks to the people on the board, like even the people who are, like total opposites, like dissenters or whatever, and the nitpickers and everything like that, she handles them very well. Like they go back and forth, and there's no sense of like she's getting angry at them, or there's no animosity, I guess,
Yeah.
And I could see, and she writes, she must be a writer because she writes long responses, and iReactions also does the same thing. He's a writer as well. When he, is answering and dissecting something, he goes into really in-depth detail. And so I could see the two of them, like if she had been around, like the two of them would be having these discussions back and forth. It would have been interesting to see, like you want to see those two people that are separated by time have a discussion. I'd like to see the two of them have a discussion.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, we got to really give it up to iReactions. I mean, he does so much research for us, and we never asked him to do it. He volunteered his efforts on our show, and we're forever
so
grateful for it. So when the stuff he comes up with is so great, and it fills our back issues, and it's great stuff. So
definitely.
So what's he got here for us?
Well, he was just mentioning how it's weird that in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Good is kind of reminiscent of Donald Trump, and then Meet John Doe, we have a presidential election. Just kind of relates to each other there. But I remember what he's talking about here in this next part. He talks about this storyline that was in the comics, and it was near 2000. There was a President Lex story where Lex Luthor ran for president and actually won. And I remember this because I still have these issues. They had like campaign buttons and him stand before a flag and everything. And
more of a Lex Lies and Videotaped. But
there you go. Exactly. So he became president, and he defended the Earth during an alien invasion type thing, and eventually comes to a conclusion, where Lois discovers that Lex knew the alien invasion was coming, but he let it happen so he could appear to be the big hero. And then it gets concluded in a whole different series in 2003, where he's becoming increasingly unstable. And he ends up declaring Superman a fugitive, so like Superman has to hide from using his powers and all, and him and Batman have to work together to try to take down the president. Apparently Lex was dosing himself on Bane's Venom steroid, and it causes him to go insane. He ends up putting on I don't know if you remember the green and purple suit that he used to wear back in the old Super Friends.
It seems very familiar.
Yeah, so he puts on that and he attacks Superman, and Batman exposes all his crimes, and Superman finally gets to punch Lex out of the presidency, It was a good storyline, but it seems like the Tempest episode is kind of like, similar to that. So it was cool. I remember reading that and I was like, yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. And that's probably why I like the Tempest episode so much as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love it. Great insights. All right. So our next issue, I assume we're going to get a wrap up here, maybe even a 2-3. Were you saying this was going to be like a 3-parter?
Yeah, I believe it's a 3-parter from what I remember. And like the Lois and Clarks, obviously, well, I know what Lois and Clarks is about.
Well, I mean, it would lead you to believe that there's going to be 2 Clarks and...
Right. So
thinking about that, like, where would a second Clark come from? I think
right.
we could speculate, but maybe we'll let the listeners try to catch on to where we're going there.
And then I can't remember, like, I have a clear vision of Lois and Clark's, but AKA Superman, I don't really remember, but I do remember that this storyline, I'm pretty sure it was a 3-parter, because it was bigger than all the other continuation ones we had before. So I was like, oh yeah. So I think that's the final chapter of this. So a 3-part story is what I'm thinking.
Well, guys, we'll find out next week.
That's right, because that's it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch, and follow the show on Twitter at Rewatch Pod. You can also visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites there, such as the forums at zoomway.net, folc.wiki.com, and the supermanhomepage.com. And don't forget, we've also got links to our archive of film Rewatch episodes.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message. Send it to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. That's very helpful. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading to patreon.com/Rewatch Podcast and make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And we're up on YouTube. You can find every single episode that we've ever done there. So search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today. All right. Well, as always, thank you for joining me for these episodes, Tom. 2 really solid ones here.
Yep.
Looks like we're heading out of the series on a high note. I hope they can keep this level up.
I think so. Like, I don't remember the next couple titles, but in my head there's another storyline that I remember that we haven't done yet. So it's coming up, and we're getting close to the end. So this must have been one of the last big storylines that I remembered in my head. But we'll get to it.
Yeah, we're only a few weeks out before we finish Lois and Clark. So thanks everybody for sticking with us through this rewatch. It's been fun. And
for sure. Yeah.
Maybe we should just throw out there, just as a little tangent here at the end of this episode, that we have a big announcement coming for the show.
Huge. Tremendous. It's going to be tremendous. Huge announcement.
We're putting a wall around the podcast.
And the other podcasts are going to pay for it.
No, there's huge news coming for the podcast and the future of the show. So I think we'll leave it maybe until we get to the end of the Lois and Clark rewatch, and we'll do a big announcement there.
Yeah.
So stay tuned as we run out season 4 of Lois and Clark. But I guess that just leaves me to say, until next time, John Doe is a darn nice guy.
Oh no, we gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Roundelay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin McCloud at incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2017, The Rewatch Podcast.
Where are your beepers? We'll be in touch.
Cause it seems so hard to